You are, Candace. Okay, we will call the meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. this morning. In the true spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge all those who call this land home now and for thousands of years in the past. May we respect each other and find understanding together and recognize the benefits that this land provides to all of us. We have one time commitment today. We have an 11 a.m. delegation, and I believe we have some proposed amendments to the agenda. So with that, let me move to item B, adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we could just add under administration F22, budget 2025 budget deliberations. We do have a few closed session items, but the majority of that item will be in the public portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. F2.2. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a deletion under the section D for subdivision applications. We'll be removing number 3 and 4 for today, and they'll be on a later agenda, a later council meeting.
Okay, 3 and 4. Any other additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to accept the agenda as amended.
John has moved to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Adoption of the minutes. Before you have the County Council meeting minutes, November 21st, 2024. Are there any errors, omissions, deletions? Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the adoption of the council meeting minutes of November 21st, 2024.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved to adopt the County Council meeting minutes November 21st, 2024 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Move down then to our subdivision applications. We have 2 subdivision applications for today. Start at number 1, subdivision application 2024-0-128, Alberta Beef Corporation. Hillary, Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Council. So we'll have 2 subdivision applications for County Council acting as a subdivision authority to consider for today. The first being subdivision application 2024-0-028 for Alberta Beef Corporation. They wish to reduce the size of an existing 58.1 acre title to 36.47 acres. The reconfiguration is to right-size the area that was used as a gravel pit operation and to separate it from the agricultural land. And I'm just going to scroll to the map here so you can kind of see where this is located. It's about 3.5 miles north of 8 Mile Lake, just to the east of Highway 845. And with that, I'll have Steve go through the planning comments and the recommendation.
Good morning, everyone. This first application is a reconfiguration. The landowner has an existing, it's a very old title, going back 100 years for a former gravel pit area. The title is actually referred to as the gravel area, which they don't usually register that way anymore, but it is a 58.18 acre title. And what the applicant is looking to do is just to rearrange that with his adjacent title in that quarter section, the agricultural portion, and just move the boundaries to reduce the title for the former gravel area in size and consolidate the land over to the agricultural portion. And it's based on, there is a pivot, as you can see there, on the southern portion, so some of the property lines will be angled to account for the irrigation pivot system. Some of the northern part of the agricultural title gets a bit more into grazing and some coulee land there. So this process will involve subdividing 25.45 acres off that former gravel pit area title and consolidate to the remainder of the northwest to 20-10-20 for the agricultural title, and it'll increase that agricultural title to 97.95 acres in size. As part of this application, there is a a dugout, as you can see there, kind of on the western portion, the southwest corner there by the road. They're proposing the boundary will partly dissect through that dugout just to give both parcels access to the water. So with that, as part of the application and an approval to do it that way, we just asked for an encroachment agreement to be registered to recognize that. There are, as you can see, there's not a residential yard or anything associated with this, so it's just a straight boundary adjustment between the two titles. There's a hay shed building on the property, but other than that, it's just largely agricultural land. Both titles with this reconfiguration will still have their access from the west municipal road allowance there. As part of this review, this land is identified by the province as potentially containing historic resources. As part of the circulation, we did hear back from Alberta Culture on this one, and they're not requiring the applicant to do anything with the reconfiguration. So there's no special considerations in that regard. And as well, through the circulation process, there was no utilities companies require an easement, and there was no objections or concerns submitted on the application. So with that, it does align with the county subdivision policies for realignment, reconfiguration of adjacent titles with no extra additional titles created. This is an application for a boundary line adjustment between the two titles and consolidating that 25.45 acres from one over to the other, so it's an arrangement of the sizes between the two parcels with no additional title created. So on that basis, I did recommend approval to you based on the draft resolution there, with the conditions that the taxes are paid and up to date, development agreement entered into if the county requires it, that they submit their final plan based on any approval received. The fourth being the subdivision and consolidation by plan, so there's no standalone title other than the reconfiguration happening. And the fifth would be that encroachment agreement be provided to address the dugout split by new parcel boundary that has to be registered concurrently with the subdivision's final endorsement between the two titles. So with those 5 conditions, the recommendation is to approve the application as presented.
Thank you, Steve. I'd open up to council for any questions you might have at this time. Go, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As part of this, I see that hay shed that was on the property was actually kind of dissected by the property line, so this also corrects
That
the
encroachment.
location of the
Yeah.
building
Yeah,
and
it'll
puts it wholly on one lot.
And Mr. Chair, that's correct. It'll fix that encroachment. There's presently that encroachment issue that this will correct by doing that.
Right. Super, thank you.
Lauren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a question, has the gravel pit ever been reclaimed? Does it have any influence on adding more land to it, or any issues there?
I think, Mr. Chair, through the chair to Councillor Hickey, this gravel pit is it's very old. It's not on the county's books in terms of having a permit for it, so I don't know that it was reclaimed as you probably would see them reclaimed today, because it's fairly historic.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, technically most of the gravel pit area is tiles being reduced in size instead of being added to. But this title is from the turn of the century, so chances are it probably wasn't reclaimed like you would reclaim today, that requirement. I don't know, hasn't been in operation for a long time or whatever, so so chances are probably not, but don't know for sure. Can't find any records on it, it's so old.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It sort of looks like there's a pivot on there, on the gravel pit area, which, because everything is all just green and it's circular, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mini smaller pivot on that portion as well.
All right, so that would suggest that it's at least relatively flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I move that application 2024-2024-0-128 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved the recommendation that subdivision application 2024-0-128 be approved subject to the conditions as outlined in the draft resolution. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Subdivision application number 2 for today, number 2024-0-129, MS Maclean Livestock, Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 0011640, and part of the north half 91020 west of the 4. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this second subdivision application for today is, as mentioned, it's in the north half of 91020 west of the 4th, which is to the 1.5 miles to the northeast of 8 Mile Lake, just to the west of Highway 845. The application is to do a reconfiguration of titles. They want to take out where the existing farmyard was located, as seen on your map, and I'll just go there. So the existing yard was kind of central to the northwest 920 west of the 4th, and they wish to move it to the a dry pivot corner, which would be in to the northeast of that, and they would that yard would then be taken down, and they would have a full pivot on that particular quarter section. I do believe is the intent of the applicant. We have recommended an amendment to what the applicant actually submitted, as they would be crossing the quarter section boundary lines and be increasing the size of the acreage from what it was previously. But I will let Steve run through those comments and the recommendation.
Mr. Chair, this application here is another reconfiguration, a little bit different perhaps than the last one in front of you, and a little bit more maybe involved in this one for your consideration this morning. As mentioned, there is an existing 4.56 acre yard subdivided out in that northwest quarter section there, on the west portion there adjacent to the road. The applicant does desire to consolidate that back into the quarter section. As you can see, the way it sits, the pivot right now kind of runs up to it on both sides. And they'd like to relocate the yard up to the northeast corner there along the north road. So that involved consolidating that back in. And in lieu, they would like to, as they applied for in their application, take out a 6.22 acre title that would straddle along the quarter section line between the northeast and the northwest quarter section, and that would involve taking 3.18 acres from the dry corner of the northeast, in addition to the 3.04 acres that would come out of the northwest, to consolidate that together to create one larger 6.22 acre title. Their, I guess, rationale for that is that they would like to keep the yard out of the pivot area and of the corners there, and just take out the dry corner area. And they feel that taking the 3 acres from each there is not, in their mind, productive, not being under the irrigation pivot. And since they're putting the 4.56 acre in, they're proposing that the little bit larger parcel size with the dry corners be considered out for the yard. As part of this review of the subdivision application, there was at one time a irrigation canal right-of-way plan that was registered along the very north perimeter of this section. It was about a 30-meter wide lateral. That was it was registered land titles, is what was referred to as the Cameron lateral. That section was rehabilitated back in 1956, but the SMRD is having trouble finding any records of actually whether the canal physically existed at this exact location or not, and if it did, how wide it was, and if it was as wide as the right-of-way. Some of their older records from the 30s and 50s got sent off to Winnipeg. They're missing some of the older data. So the status of whether that was actually a physical canal there or not is a little bit unknown, unless somebody has some local history. The applicant themselves wasn't aware that there was ever physically a canal or not. So that bit of information is not fatal to the subdivision itself, but just understanding that if a parcel is created there, they would likely have to do some geotech, for if any buildings, that sort of thing. With the setbacks to the county's road there and the 125 feet required back from the center line, most of that area where the canal would have run, most buildings would be outside that area anyways. But it's just something to note here as part of the review that came up, that a lot of people, including the owner, apparently weren't aware of, that there might have been a canal there at one time. Some of the other things with the application, there are no confined feeding operations located in proximity where the MDS would be compromised. There's no historical resources associated with this one. Other than that canal situation, any kind of environmental concerns or anything like that that were discovered. So with this application, the one utility company, ATCO, if you are doing an approval of a yard, did a request for an easement for themselves. Now with this application, as part of the referral out, the adjacent landowner who has the yard in the very southeast corner did send in a letter of concern or objection to the subdivision, which is indicated in your package there in the resolution. It's the very last item J. Are there concerns submitted? Which largely based on that they feel that their quarter section, their yard out, is the subdivision from that quarter section, and there's going to be additional land taken out of that northwest corner to accommodate this other yard being enlarged, as well as concern with the 6.2 acre size, that's more than double the normally a vacant parcel is only allowed at 3 acres in size, and since there's no buildings on this, it's technically classified as a vacant, so it'd be double that size. So they expressed a few concerns with the subdivision being at the 6.22 and spilling over, so to speak, into the northeast quarter section there, and had some expressed their concern with that. Which the applicant is aware that that neighbor has expressed that concern. So with that, this application for you is a reconfiguration by consolidating that existing 4.56 acre yard back into the core section, in lieu taking out another title. They're up at the north end. But this one has a couple considerations for you to use your discretion on this morning. So the first part is that normally for a vacant parcel, the maximum size is 3 acres. It's acknowledged that they have an existing 4.56 acre title for the yard that is there. So we're looking at this application and presenting a recommendation to you. The first suggestion was that it may be most fair just to allow them to take out the same area of what they already have for an existing title, do a straight swap for the area. They have 4.56 at the one location, so to take out the 4.56 at the other. I will note that when the 4.56 acre was created, The county did under that older bylaw as well, have a 3-acre maximum parcel size, so they did receive a waiver to create the 4.56 when that yard was created. So it'd be kind of like an equal swap, so to speak, for what they received last time. Anything more than the 3-acre of a vacant, that is a waiver or variance of the maximum 3-acre parcel size. As well, the other consideration is the application as proposed, they would like to spill over and take some of that land out of the northwest corner of the northeast quarter section, just to enlarge it there. As you can see from the configuration shape they want to do, that would be based on the pivot there. That's why it's rounded on each of the southwest and southeast corners. As mentioned, they like to do that because they say it's outside the irrigation pivot. With the setbacks from the road, or if there is that little bit of a canal there too with the extra land, just gives them a little bit of extra room there to set up a future yard. One of the things that we'll acknowledge is that if you look closely at the where the pivot is in the northwest corner there, the 4.56 acre taken strictly out of the northwest quarter likely would go into the area of the pivot there, because that is about a 3-acre dry corner outside the pivot there. So with that, the one recommendation is to give the straight land swap, the 4.56, for a new location for the 4.56 as a reconfiguration of titles. As alternatives, provided 2 different options for you here this morning. One is that the subdivision authority may only approve the bylaw vacant parcel size not to exceed 3 acres in size to come out of the northwest there, which would align with a vacant parcel if it was just a vacant and there wasn't a yard involved. The second option is to approve the requested 6.22 acre vacant parcel as the applicant applied for. Just if you accept their rationale that that's not as productive farmland there, and with the setbacks to the road and possibly the canal, that sort of stuff, would give them a little bit extra area to properly establish a yard. So you as council, as the subdivision authority, have the discretion to determine what you think is suitable for the application. The applicant feels they have merit in their proposal. With any of the 3 options, the end result would be the same in the sense that there are currently 4 titles in the north half of this section, and in the end, with the condition of consolidation, there will only be a maximum of 4 titles in the end as well. So what you're really looking at is dealing with the parcel size, suitability, and whether you see there's merit in taking some of that from the northeast as well to make the larger yard. But in the end, there'll be 4 titles in that north half, 2 yards, 2 agricultural portions. So hopefully that all makes sense. If there's any questions, you can see in the draft resolution there's 5 conditions presented. Taxes paid up to date, development agreement entered into. The third is based on limiting it to the maximum of the 4.5 acre, the size that they currently have for the existing yard, and doing a straight swap, land swap. The fourth is the condition for the consolidation. And the fifth would be the ATCO gas easement request. So on that basis, if there's any questions or require clarification on something, we can certainly try to answer it.
Thank you, Steve. That's clear as mud. Steve, I believe you said, but the one potential option would be just to do a swap within the northwest and move that 4.56, move it up into that corner there, that could be one of the options.
Yeah, and that's the option that's presented to you in the draft resolution. That, yeah.
Okay.
We felt that
Um,
was the most fair option, just given the circumstances.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Go ahead.
Just some clarification, the size of that subdivision, was it the intent to put in like a, it's not obviously just a residential property that would, you don't know, that never came, that's not part of it, it's just,
But the application is to have a new yard at that location, so country residential in nature is, but you're right, we don't have any concrete plans for that parcel right now.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you put the 4.56 acres in the corner, in the one quarter, then you're gonna be encroaching on about 2 acres of, or 2.5 acres of irrigated land. So you'd have to either shorten the pivot if you're gonna use all the land. I think it'd make more sense to move it over the quarter line and give them the 3 acres there, because they own both sides of both quarters anyways.
Yeah, Mr. Yeah, it is acknowledged that likely that if they want the 4.56, that it would impede into the pivot area.
Council could also choose to have the 4.56, but that it could go over into the northeast quarter. That would be the option that would prevent implicating that pivot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, again. Well, I understand where you're saying that, but then that kind of gets to be, well, what are you gonna do with the other little piece that's there? It's difficult to handle that kind of situation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So many questions. Number one, I'm making the assumption, but I think maybe administration could clarify this. They own the adjacent quarter, so this is,
Correct.
we're not dealing with a second landowner. Okay.
Correct.
All right. And that's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that was out there. The second issue is, if we were to approve their application as presented by them, would there be anything that could be put on the titles that would prevent them from further splitting that into 2 3-acre parcels at some point or another?
No.
Or 3 2-acre parcels?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through the Councilor Kurbis, the short answer is no. Land titles doesn't allow that to happen. And there was actually a case that went to court, so it's a court precedent now that municipalities aren't allowed to put caveats on title to do that. The planning law is that you regulate subdivision through your subdivision policies, and you can't tie future subdivision authorities into decisions where policy that made saying, so they'll strike off those types of caveats if they're put onto titles, and they won't allow that to be registered.
Okay.
So you have to look at a time application, come forward, what your policies are, and if there's merit or not at that future time, and you can't
Got to
buy.
deal with it at the time on its own merits, because
That's-
policies may change
that's
later
correct,
on anyway.
yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, so my comment on this is that their application as presented is one of those things that just makes perfect sense, but just doesn't really fit well into our regulations as it is. And I understand their logic behind it, and you know, given the fact that it's 2 dry corners, it is a little bit on the unusual. It's not something that we would normally see amalgamating it. But I personally do not see any problem with their proposal as presented, other than it just, I don't think our land use bylaw would have ever contemplated somebody doing something like this. And as for, you know, the parcel size of 3 acres out of vacant land, I mean, we pretty routinely do property line adjustments that create weird-sized properties all the time.
Quick class.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, long story short, I think it just makes common sense to do it that way, to take out that 4.56 and just give them that, the 3 acres on both quarters there. Because it's not productive land, so I think it's just common sense to be able to approve that one.
Any other thoughts, concerns? How'd you like to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move subdivision application 2024-0-129 be approved at the 6.22 acre parcel size with the conditions.
Any other questions? Any further discussion? Okay, Lauren has moved the recommendation, the subdivision, just make sure I have the right one here. No, I'll make sure I have the right one. 2024-0129 be approved subject to the conditions, including the waiver be granted to allow a maximum vacant parcel size of 6.22 acres to be subdivided from the 2 quarter sections, I suppose it would have to be then.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Does that capture it?
I think so,
Hillary?
yeah.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that would only make it one unit though, right?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
still one parcel, yeah.
Subject to consolidation.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thanks,
Thank
Lauren.
you.
Thanks, Hillary. Thanks, Steve. We can then move down to item F, department reports, F1, development and infrastructure, F1.1, the 2024 Hamlet of Monarch Growth Study Review. Hillary?
Thank you. Hannah LeBerge is going to present this particular report for us.
Excellent. Morning, Hannah.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Oh boy, thank you. Hey, so just to start off with some background, the Hamlet growth studies were conducted from 2018 to 2020 in collaboration with Steve Hardy and ORRSC. They're scheduled to be reviewed every 5 years to make sure they're relevant in guiding growth in our Hamlet communities. And Monarch's growth study was completed in 2018, and it determined that it had several opportunities for both infill growth and for expansion to the west. This study looked at municipal servicing, residential and commercial assessment, and included a survey to residents about what they liked and disliked about the community. The 2024 review looks at all of these different aspects and how they've evolved since 2018, and any new opportunities or constraints that it might have. Since the last growth study, Monarch has seen slow and steady trends towards infill growth and development, and this has happened through several residential developments and subdivisions. Other notable changes include improvements to our utility infrastructure and a new playground, which was looked upon very favorably by our residents. There has otherwise been very little change to the existing conditions and community services of Monarch. So to start, we will just look at how Monarch has developed through the different series of maps I created for this report. Starting off, this map describes where and what type of development has happened in Monarch. You'll also notice that there are a couple developments right outside of the boundaries. I did this just to give you a more holistic perspective of what's happening around the community. And you'll notice one development to the northwest of the hamlet is actually part of our expansion zone. So in total, Monarch had 12 applications for residential uses. Those are the red dots. 7 applications for accessory, which are marked by pink dots. 1 commercial industrial application, which is just north of the hamlet in that industrial rail yard. Then we had 3 applications for home-based businesses, which are in orange. We had 2 demolitions. And in total, this development has resulted in an estimated $4,420,000 being invested into the community. Residential development generated the most of this investment with $3,401,000. And this number is generated from estimates given by landowners on their development permit application forms. Since the last growth study, Monarch has seen an uptick in development. Most of this was residential and accessory uses, and most of these were constructed after 2021. This has shifted the residential character of Monarch quite a bit. Before it was mostly 1960s to 1980s residential housing stock, and now it is balanced out by newer housing stock. This should also be noted that Monarch residents take pride in the aesthetic qualities of their neighborhood. So this is a positive improvement and aligns with the values that they set out in their resident engagement survey. There was also a small amount of commercial activity through applications for the home occupations and the one commercial industrial application. A commercial assessment of Monarch shows that commercial development is not sustainable due to the low population and due to low demand from other municipalities because they're so close and offer more servicing. But the industrial rail business is now the only development that has happened since the original 2018 study. Moving on to map 2, Monarch still has many opportunities for growth through infill. This map compares subdivisions with vacant lot to show how much room is left for development. So subdivisions are noted in pink and vacant lots are noted with the black cross-hatching. So you'll notice most of the subdivided lots have now been occupied, but there are still several vacant lots left in the community. So if we move down to map 3, you can see that many of the empty lots have existed since the 2018 study. All those marked with both orange and yellow stripes have been vacant all 5 years. And there are 5 parcels which have been developed on since 2018, and they are marked with only the yellow highlighting. So there is still quite a bit of infill potential left in Monarch. And then if we move down to map 4, this is a map of the potable water line, which services Monarch. Since the last growth study, Monarch's water infrastructure has been improved by the county through a new water vault and ground storage facility. This replaces the water tower that used to be there. And all growth in Monarch has been accommodated by the county's water line. And moving down to map 5, Monarch's sewer system is also able to service all of the new development, and it pipes out to the 2-celled lagoon that is east of the hamlet. This area was not considered for future expansion because of this. And with both water and sewer, there will only need to be minor adjustments to the existing infrastructure to accommodate any new growth in the next couple of years. And just in conclusion, even though Monarch has not seen changes to land or infrastructure needs, the Hamlet of Monarch's growth study is still a viable long-term plan for growth because development trends show consistent investment into the hamlet, and its larger lots and low commercial activity make it a desirable place for quiet residential enjoyment. The growth study has been successful in providing guidance to the county on how to meet the needs of Monarch residents and will continue to do so through periodic review. That's it. Thank you.
Is there any questions? Go ahead, John.
No questions, just you did very, very well, so
Thank
kudos
you.
to you.
That is very sweet.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, good job. And just what is the population of Monarch? Do you know?
Ooh, it was, it's in the study. I'm just gonna pull it up here.
217 and
Yes.
21?
Yes, so right now, we are going off of the census, which was done in 2021, and it was 217. Because of the new, commercial and, not commercial, residential developments, we're predicting it's closer to 230 or 240 people. Yeah.
Because most of the development we've seen has been since 2021, so we've seen an uptick, and there's been a number of younger families that have been buying those lots there. So we anticipate, that the next census will definitely show that. We don't do municipal census, so it's a little bit harder for us to define, but we know that 217 is on it's a very low number, and it's definitely gone up since then.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Hannah. That was terrific. And I just want to say thank you for the lovely picture of the Devon Teely Water Tower on page 3. I appreciate that. But no, thank you very much. That was great.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Hannah will be doing reviews of our other growth studies over the next year or two, so you'll see her a few more times doing these types of presentations. But very thankful for her assistance in this, and she did a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Hillary.
Thanks.
We can move down. F1.2, local growth and sustainability grant application. If you want to, sure, go ahead.
I just move that we approve the 2024 Hamlet of Monarch Growth Study Review as an appendix to the original Hamlet of Monarch Growth Study.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Mark. Morning, Devin.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. So today I have before you a grant application that we will be applying for the Local Growth and Sustainability Grant. This was presented as correspondence at the last council meeting. A letter from Rick McIver came to the county indicating that this one-time LGSG grant would be available to apply for municipalities. A requirement of the grant application is that the municipality must pass a council motion in favor of submitting the application. So administration would like to apply for this grant for the Broxburn Wastewater Septic Field Replacement Project. As this project is currently funded within the 2024 budget through the LGFF and reserve funding, we will be able to meet the funding criteria without a budget amendment. So the province has allocated $60 million towards this program, with the stipulation that the project must commence by September 30th, 2025 and finish by December 31st, 2027. Successful applicants would be required to fund at least 50% of the cost of the project using other revenue sources, in which 30% can be funded under the LGFF or CCBF programs. So I've got a bit of a breakdown of the existing and proposed funding allocations. So currently approved for this project, we have $1 million from the utility reserve and $600,000 from the local government fiscal framework grant. Under the proposed funding, we're looking at $320,000 from the utility reserve, $480,000 from the LGFF grant, and $800,000 from this new local growth and sustainability grant. And just for reference, our current utility reserve balance is just over $5.7 million. So with that, the recommendation before you today is that County Council approve submitting a local growth and sustainability grant for the Broxburn Wastewater Septic Field Replacement Project. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Devin. I'd open up to council for any questions, discussion. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that this makes perfect sense, because if there's funding available from alternate sources, we should be aggressively approaching those. So I would like to move that County Council approve submitting a local growth and sustainable grant for the Broxburn Wastewater Septic Field Replacement Project. That's a mouthful.
Thank you, John. John has moved the recommendation that County Council approve submitting a local growth and sustainability grant for the Broxburn Wastewater Septic Field Replacement Project. Is there any further discussion? Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Devin.
Thank you, Council.
Moving down, F2 Administration, F2.1. We have our ORRSC Regional Assessment Review Board appointment. Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the term for the current Regional Assessment Review Board appointment has ended. The current member or a new member will have to be appointed by council. And it would be our recommendation that County Council appoint John Wilms to the Regional Assessment Review Board. And just a little bit of background, ORRSC has advised us that the term of the current appointment member, Mr. John Wilms, has ended. Mr. Wilms has updated his training and is now valid until 2026. Due to the training being quite cumbersome, spots on the board are typically hard to fill. Mr. Wilms has indicated he would like to remain on the board until his current training expires in 2026.
Thank you, Cole. Any questions from council? Motion? Go ahead, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that County Council appoint John Wilms to the Regional Assessment Review Board.
Thank you, Klaus. Klaus has moved the recommendation that County Council appoint John Wilms to the Regional Assessment Review Board. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Cole, how would you like to handle that? Do you want to go through the correspondence first, or do you want to, how would you like to?
Yeah, I think we can go through the correspondence and then it's done and we can move into the budget because we'll have some public portion, some in camera.
When we move down, item G, correspondence. Our first item, Alberta Public Safety and Emergency Services. before you have a letter from the Honorable Mike Ellis. Dear Reeve Campbell, as a respected partner in the field of police governance in Alberta, I am writing to highlight how recently proclaimed legislative changes may affect your community. The government of Alberta is enhancing civilian governance of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police by proclaiming sections of the Police Amendment Act 2282 and creating the Police Governance Regulation and Police Governance Ministerial Regulation. These amendments will ensure communities policed by the RCMP have a voice in setting local and province-wide policing priorities and performance goals by creating municipal and regional policing committees as well as a provincial police advisory board. These changes will take effect March 1st, 2025, after a transition period to allow municipalities to pass and implement relevant bylaws. Excuse me. Every community in Alberta served by the RCMP will be required to be represented on by one of these following types of governance bodies, depending on their population size and type of police service agreement. Communities with a population of 15,000 or greater, police under a municipal police service agreement. These communities will be required to establish a municipal policing committee through bylaws by March 1st, 2025. MPCs will consist of between 3 and 7 members appointed by the municipality's council. The minister may also appoint committee members based on the size of the committee. Committees with a population of less than 15,000 policed under a municipal police service agreement. These committees are required to establish a regional policing committee through bylaws by March 1st, 2025. Each RCMP district is a region, e.g. South, Central, East, and West, and each region contains 5 to 10 municipalities required to work with other communities in the same RCMP district to form a regional policing committee, RPC. RPCs will consist of at least one member appointed by each municipality represented. Communities may opt out of an RPC in favor of establishing their own municipal committee or a joint committee with another municipality with ministerial approval. I'll skip over the last one. Attached for further reference is a frequently asked questions document with more information about the new requirements for RCMP local governance bodies. You can also find all this information on the government's website. Please note that in a few weeks your administration will receive communication from a department representative with details about planned information sessions regarding the governance bodies. If you have any questions or require support in setting up these governance bodies, please contact the department. Thank you for everything you do to help ensure Albertans can live, work, and raise families in safe and secure communities. Cole, did you have anything on that one?
No.
Okay. Anything from council? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we would fall under the communities with a population of less than 50,000 policed under a municipal police service agreement, I would assume, right?
That's what I'm assuming as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm reading into that, then we need to get together with the municipalities that are serviced with the RCMP in the region and create a committee formed of all the municipalities, or we could form our own.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. We got a little bit of work to do then before March, eh?
Is there anything else on that one? Go ahead, Lauren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does that, when it says 15,000, does that mean just our municipality? Or does it mean the added numbers like with Coaldale and us? Or how does that work?
I'm, through the chair to Councillor Hickey, I'm not clear. I was thinking the same thing. We've been so focused on budget, I haven't really dug into this one. So what we maybe can do is we'll go back to the province, request clarity, and then we'll set up a meeting with Sergeant Mike Newman and see if they have some information on how it's being handled elsewhere, and then we can proceed from there. I would assume it'd be fairly straightforward. If we do need to establish something, there should be some guidelines, but we'll verify. So let us take that one away, and we'll bring back some more information for council.
And I do believe in those frequently asked questions, some of that was spelled out. I did read through there. There were certain guidelines around who can sit on the committees and who can chair the committees. I know that Reeves and mayors were prohibited from sitting as chairs, and there were some more details spelled out in those FAQs too. Our second piece, MLA Nathan Newdorf Christmas Party Invitation, Christmas Party 2024. Received an email from MLA Minister Newdorf's office. Join MLA Newdorf and his family for a family-friendly Christmas movie this Saturday, next Saturday, December 14th at 12 p.m. They'll be screening A Christmas Carol at the Movie Mill. So Mr. Newdorf asked to pass that along to council. And our third piece, the CPAA conference sponsorship. Received correspondence regarding the 2025 CPAA conference sponsorship package. Hillary, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chairman. So with regards to the CPA sponsorship, last year, just for council's knowledge, we had a diamond sponsorship for the CPA conference. As you can see under there, we would have some opportunities for 3 registrations to the conference and 2 free registrations to the education session. That aligned quite well with the members of council that wanted to come last year. So that was the reason why that was chosen as the sponsorship option in 2024. This year, they put things out a little earlier just to try to get some momentum. They also have early bird registration prior to January. I think it's mid-January that their early bird registration ends. So this was an opportunity for council to determine if you want to do the sponsorship package, you can get the registrations already and then choose who wants to go at a later date. Or you could choose a lower sponsorship package or whatever council would choose, and then have others register as at a later date when kind of more information is available on who is able to go. The conference is at the end of April, from April 28th to 30th. In Red Deer at the Red Deer Resort and Casino. They do have a keynote speaker already lined up, and it is Doug Griffiths. So that's some information. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Thanks, Hillary. Any thoughts on that one? I know the people that have attended in the past have always spoke very highly of that particular conference. Is there interest? Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would move that we go with a diamond sponsorship as we did last year, and authorize any council members that wanted to attend.
Thank you, John.
Do we need that in 2?
No? Okay. Any further discussion on that item? So John has moved that council authorize a diamond level sponsorship for the 2025 CPAA conference sponsorship package and authorize any member of council interested in attending to be able to do so. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. That brings us to 9:55 this morning. Why don't we adjourn for, say, a 10-minute recess. We'll return. We'll deal with the public portion of our edition, and then we can move into a closed session. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order at 10:07 this morning. Moving our agendas to our edition F2.2, 2025 budget deliberations. And I will throw to you, Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know that we moved through the initial 2025 budget presentations fairly quickly, and we had some wholesome discussions with council on Monday. We wanted to give it a few days before we followed up. I know that there's a few items we need to address in closed, but we just wanted to follow up and see if council has had any additional thoughts or inquiries or questions related to the public portion of our conversation or the budget in general, outside of those few items that we need to discuss in closed.
Does not look to be.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, I would entertain a motion to enter a closed session. Go ahead, Lauren.
Move that we go into a closed session at 10:07.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin has moved to go into a closed session at 10:07 a.m. this morning. We have 3 items for closed session consideration today. 2025 budget deliberations, FOIP Section 25, disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body. Item 2, disposal of municipal land, FOIP Section 25, disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body. And a CAO report, FOIP Sections 16, 17, 23, and 24. So with that, there's no further discussions. Call a question. Those in favor? Opposed?
Move to come out of closed.
Just minimize them and they can do theirs. Cameras are rolling.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to, the public portion of the meeting back to order at 11:03 a.m. this morning. Moving our agendas to item E, delegations. We have an 11 a.m. delegation with stars. Without further ado, the floor is yours, Jackie.
Good morning. Get comfy here. All right, well, good to see you again. You may recall that my colleague Glenda Farndon introduced me to you last year. I'm just located in the town of Bassano, so it's nice to be down in Lethbridge and getting to know the community. Next year, STARS will be celebrating 40 years of providing critical care in Alberta. We're very excited about that, and as a charitable organization that operates at no cost to the patient, it wouldn't be possible without the generosity of our donors, like Lethbridge County. We're happy to report back to Council that we did secure another 10-year service agreement with our largest donor, Alberta Health Services, and this is at the same amount that we've been receiving since 21 at the $15 million per year block funding. After that, in Alberta alone, we still must fundraise another 56% of our budget, which is around $19 million. A little over $10 million of that comes from the STARS lottery. Then it's business, corporate, and individual donations, community events, and of course, a pillar comes from our municipal initiative. Taking a look at a year in review of fiscal year ending March 31st of 2024, our Emergency Link Center located in Calgary received 37,365 emergency requests. That's up from the previous year with over 1,000 more requests. Last year across all bases, we flew an additional 500 missions. That changed our base costs from around 10 million, increasing to 11.4 million. So we're very thankful for the sustainability of our long 10-year agreement with Alberta Health Services and the continued support that we receive through the municipal initiative and beyond. If you take a look on the right-hand side, you'll see what our highest missions are. Number one is cardiac, and after that, vehicle incidents. They're pretty close together. Taking a look at the municipal support across Alberta and northeastern BC, this just shows the different levels of support from municipalities. Under the $2 per capita are some of our leaders, which actually Lethbridge County is at the $2 per capita. You guys are a regional leader. So I caught that, and we'll have that corrected on there. Next, we have the Sea of Blue across the map with contributors of $2 per capita, and that is a regional leader like yourselves. Then our municipal leaders are featured in the light green, and this is where they're contributing at a much higher rate and received logo recognition on our helicopter. Many of these are at a fixed rate of support and have stars as a line item in their budget on a standing motion. Regional partnerships are shown in red, which with Glenda adding me to the municipal initiative, I've done extensive work across southern Alberta, which I'll share a little more about in a bit. Non-supporters are shown in white on the map, but the united partnership of municipalities across Alberta really creates a robust health and safety network for all of us. Within Lethbridge County up to October 15th, 2024, last year we reported that on average there's 70 missions per year within Lethbridge County. That has increased to 76 missions. A number of interfacility transfers still happen through the Lethbridge Hospital, and as we explained last year, our STARS transport physician determines the best mode of transport for the patient. So they may be picked up by ground ambulance. So many of our people throughout the rural communities are picked up by ground ambulance, brought into the hospital, and if deemed critical, STARS is called. Lethbridge is still our third busiest hospital in Alberta. Here's just a quick recap on our postal code project that we used patient postal code information only to research back to 2010, showing that 550 total area residents were flown. 456 picked up in Lethbridge, and 98 residents were flown from 54 other locations across 3 provinces. So on the right-hand side there, you can see all the red dots that shows where the patient was located at the time they were flown by STARS. All of the communities are listed below. So accidents and injury do not only happen when we're close to home, they happen when we travel for work, on vacation, seeing family. We thought we would include a little bit of an insight into what a day in a life at STARS looks like for our air medical crew. So on average, we're flying 11 missions per day across all bases. So over 60,000 missions to date. Just to give you a little bit of an example, mission number 3, this is where the NICU team flew out with STARS to the location where an infant was that needed critical care. They performed critical care on site, and then the baby was taken by ground ambulance to the hospital. Another mission, number 6, was a non-medically related, so the mission was canceled. There was a vehicle rollover, but it was deemed that the patient was no longer critical, so our crew turned around and went back to the base so they could be ready for the next critical patient. There's also situations where our air medical crew will will go by ground with a patient as well. So that's what's determined through the Emergency Link Center with the STARS transport physician, what is best for the patient. Our crew members are advanced life support paramedics and also highly trained critical care flight nurses. We have, in addition to our 4 units of universal blood that is carried on board, STARS piloted a new blood product in Saskatchewan, and that came to Alberta. So this one is fibrinogen. So in severe trauma cases where the patient needs more than 2 units of blood, we're able to administer this medication to promote blood clotting to slow down the bleeding. STARS continues to innovate in many different ways as its own entity to really provide the best level of care to patients. Often we're asked, how far can stars fly? Well, we flew our longest mission last year, and that was for a patient who was experiencing a heart attack in northern BC. So they were in a very remote area, and they had driven 10 hours, went by boat for 5 hours up the river, hiked up a mountain, and by this time the fellow was having a cardiac incident. So without any cell service, they managed to reach somebody in the Grand Prairie area through their in-reach radios and ask for help. They knew they couldn't get up there in a timely manner, and it was too late for search and rescue to be dispatched because they didn't have night vision goggle capability. And so STARS Emergency Link Center said, just give us a few minutes, we'll try and figure something out, and they coordinated a plan. At that time, they dispatched from the Grand Prairie base, flew to Fort Nelson, BC, fueled up the helicopter, and then flew to Chi House where the patient was. But it was a little more complicated than that. They actually had to land on the side of a riverbank in between some trees, and then all 4 crew members had to go across the river and up into the mountains to get Mr. McTavish. Thankfully, this is a success story. 2,408 liters of fuel were burned, 1,763 kilometers were flown, equal distance from Calgary to Los Angeles, 8.2 hours of flight time, and 5.3 hours with the patient. After the patient got back to Grand Prairie, they were then taken to Edmonton, and the STARS medical crew stayed with that patient. In the end, 1 life saved. I really want to thank Lethbridge County for being a regional leader. Your support has made a difference in recruiting basically more people to the municipal program across southern Alberta. So since we were here last year, your neighbors to the east, MD of Taber, have joined the municipal initiative, as well as the town of Taber, and most recently Barnwell, the village of Barnwell. Sterling is already a supporter down in Warner County, and I was able to also add the town of McGrath. So that's been really nice too. And going to the north, the town of Nobleford has joined the municipal initiative, as well as the village of Champion. Down here in southern Alberta, our first city joined as well, which is the city of Brooks. So your leadership in southern Alberta really is making a difference. So thank you so much. A life is saved every day, and it's your partnership that continues to make it possible.
Thank you very much, Jackie. We sure appreciate the presentation. I would open it up to council if you have any questions at this point. Claus and then John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How far can you fly on the, because you said your tank is 2,400 liters?
Well, that's how many liters we burned on that particular mission.
So how big is your fuel tank?
Well, I'm not certain of the size specifically of the fuel tank, but speaking with relevancy to southern Alberta, our normal fuel load, like that we carry, because why carry more fuel than we need to, that normal fuel load takes us beyond Taber. If we know that we have a mission to go to that's further away than that, then the crew would fill that tank to the hilt and then embark on that mission and be able to go all the way, say if it's the southeast corner or the southwest corner, then they would be able to go all the way there and back.
John?
Thanks. I was just gonna say thank you for what you do, and I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Anything else? Sure appreciate you coming in today, Jackie. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, and I know we're proud to be a part, a small part of what you do. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I just want to do a shout out to Heath here. Heath has been a supporter of STARS for many years and has been helpful in connecting me with people throughout Lethbridge, so thank you very much to Heath as well. I will leave with your council our 40th anniversary calendar for next year. One set for you guys and one set for the fire department. It's basically a then and now of our VIP stories. So the ripple effect of a life saved, with our very first patient being here in southern Alberta, Kelly Waldron, it really is impactful. There's a bit of STARS history in there as well. And then for each of the departments, Horizons magazine with some interesting STARS stories and information about us as well. So thank you so much for your continued support.
Awesome. Thank you very much. John has moved to come out of closed session at 12:30 PM this afternoon. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Good, Candace. All right, we will resume. We'll resume our public meeting at 12:31 this afternoon. Stemming from our closed session, we have 3 proposed motions. I'll start on our first item, item 1, the 2025 budget deliberations. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the 2025 operating budget expense in the amount of $35,567,383.00 be approved. And that the 2026 and 2027 operating budget expense in the amount of $38,108,321 and $38,128,788 respectively be approved in principle.
Thank you, John. Is there any further discussion? John has moved that the 2025 operating budget expenses in the amount of $35,567,383 be approved, and the 2026 and 2027 operating budget expenses in the amounts of $38,108,321 and $38,128,788 respectively be approved in principle. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. And for the capital expenses, Claus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the 2025 capital budget expenses in the amount of $11,421,000 be approved, and that the 2026, 2027, 28, and 29 capital budget expenses in the amount of $11,665,000 and $11,850,000 and $11,287,000 and $12,791,000 be respectfully be approved in principle.
Thank you, Claus. Is there any further discussion? Claus has moved that the 2025 capital budget expenses in the amount of $11,421,000 be approved, and the 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029 capital budget expenses in the amounts of $11,665,000, $11,850,000, $11,287,000, and $12,791,000 respectively be approved in principle. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried. Just a note on that budget. Just again, a big thank you to staff, to Cole, to Candace, to all the department heads, to everyone that had input in the budget. Your work is greatly appreciated. Again, just want to acknowledge that with some changes in staffing and changing in some of the approaches, a software conversion, there was a lot of factors coming into play this year, and just want to thank everyone for a really smooth process and coming in with a budget that I think obviously council is very happy to see. And it just to highlight, I guess, on the budget, it's a budget that contributes to reserves, optimizes operational efficiencies, and commits to process improvements. It sets the stage for sustainable growth while balancing immediate needs with long-term priorities. So very thankful to be in the position we are, and just want to, I guess, acknowledge council's role in this. This is the last budget that this group will approve, and just very thankful for all the work, the thought, the questions, the deliberation that went into things. I want to give a lot of credit to this group. I think there's a lot of external factors that play into budget discussions, and I want to give you guys a ton of credit, because there's no pointing fingers, there's no shifting blame, there's no hiding behind anything. You're accountable to this, we are accountable to this. I think there's an acknowledgement that we have room to grow, there's room to be better, and I think this budget does just that. It continues to push us forward, to raise our levels of service, to provide more to our residents, and to continue to try and be as efficient and find new ways to be better. So I just, a big thank you to council and everyone that had a part in the 2025 budget process. Moving down, our second closed session item, disposal of municipal land. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the county council approve the sale of the lands to Alberta Transportation and Economic Development Corridors at the appraised value.
Thank you, Mark. Mark has moved the recommendation that County Council approve the sale of the lands to Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors at the appraised value. Is there any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Is there anything further for today? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Morris has moved to adjourn the meeting at 12:36 p.m. this afternoon. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? Oh, 2-0.